I've done over 50 DIY electrical videos on the channel now, and I've received thousands and thousands of comments from you guys giving me feedback on these projects. Sometimes that feedback is calling out things that I've done wrong, so I wanted to distill down the top 5 things that I've learned where I made mistakes, and hopefully I can help you avoid those same mistakes. Number 1 is probably obvious to most people, but it was a mistake I made where I was mixing 12 gauge with 14 gauge wire on the same circuit, which is a big no-no. Now in my instance, I was adding a light to a basement and I had some extra 14.2 Romex, so I just ran that to the new box back to an existing box that had power, but the power coming in was 12 gauge wire and 12.2 Romex. So in my instance, the circuit breaker was actually 15 amp, so technically that 14 gauge wire could be placed on that circuit, but when you start mixing 12 and 14, that's very confusing for anybody coming after you doing work, whether that's repairing or maintenance or adding to that circuit. Now, if I had a 20 amp breaker on that circuit and I use 14 gauge, now that's against code. You don't want to be using 14 gauge on a 20 amp circuit. So it's just always best practice to maintain the same gauge wire across the circuit and make sure you're using 12 gauge for your 20 amp circuits and 14 gauge for your 15 amp circuits. Now I've had a few properties in the past where they had no ceiling lights and instead they have switched outlets where you'd plug in a lamp and then you could turn the light switch on and off, and that would control one side of the duplex outlets so you could turn your lamps on and off in the room. So I made a quick upgrade by adding a ceiling light and then tapping into that light switch. Now the box I used was very similar to this box where you actually push it up into the hole and this metal bracket will push on the back side of the drywall. You'll tighten that down and that will hold it in place. The problem is many of these boxes are only rated for about 10 pounds, or this one specifically goes up to 15 pounds. Now that was fine for the light that I was installing, but let's say I sell that property in the future and somebody wants to install a fan. So they install the fan on the box that's existing there and the fan is well over the rated rate for that box that's installed. So it could easily rip out of the drywall and obviously cause quite an issue. So what I should have used instead is one of these brackets. You can push it up through the hole and then you adjust it, and this will extend out the distance of this bracket so it will push against and really bite into your joist. So it bites into the joist and these legs actually sit on the drywall. Then once you get it all adjusted, you put this bracket on top and then up through your hole you can place your electrical box. Now this is going to give you the capability you need, so if somebody wants to install a fan, it easily can hold that weight and not be a problem. Now number 3 relates to not making solid wire connections. There's been a few times in the past I installed a light fixture and I went back to that same fixture and found I didn't do a proper pull test, where I would have found usually the stranded wire is loosely held and easily can pull out, causing an issue where your light's not working or possibly even arcing. So you either need to make sure you're comfortable working with wire nuts and always doing that pull test, making sure all wires are securely held in the wire nut, or you can upgrade to what are called lever nuts from Wagos. You see the wires are fully seated in the connectors and then you just flip down the levers and now you have a securely held wire connector. This is by far a better way for DIYers. And honestly, I've never heard of somebody that tried out these Wagos and they were not pleasantly surprised. Now you'll want to make sure that you're getting the right Wagos because there are a little different sizes. They have the 613 that can go up to 10 gauge wire and then the 413 which goes to 12 gauge. I prefer the 413s for the 2 wire, the 3 wire, and the 5 wire because it has a smaller envelope and it's easier to fit in your electrical boxes. Now, if you want to try those out, you can look down in the description. You'll see a link to our Amazon store. And then in our Amazon store, we have everything categorized out. So you'll see the electrical category. Click on that and you'll see a few different starter kits, which is a perfect way to start with Wago lever nuts to see if they're right for you and right for your projects. Moving on to number 4, it was a mistake I made in proper grounding of a metal electrical box. Now, I installed a electrical box that served as a junction box up in the attic. I tied together all my Romex and covered it up and went about the job. The thing I didn't do is I did not bond the box with a pigtail and a grounding screw inside of it. Now, why is this so important? Because unlike plastic boxes, if the hot conductor were to short on a metal box, now the metal box turns into your hot conductor. If you or somebody else comes along and touches that box, now you are providing the path back to source, and then you could get injured or even worse. So with the ground, if the hot were to short against the box, that would then trip your breaker. It would not present that same issue where the box is hot waiting for you to come along and touch it. So just remember, learn from my past mistakes and always ground your metal electrical boxes, ensuring you have a safe install for all your future projects. And then number 5 relates to a very common tool called a non-contact voltage tester. These are 2 different versions made by Klein Tools. One is an NCVT-3 and the other is a -3P. The -3P is my preferred voltage tester, and that's because I've actually gotten in trouble in the past using this one. The big difference between these two, turn them on here, you'll see is the -3P has a green indicator light, which is a much stronger indicator that you have battery and your voltage tester is looking for voltage. This one actually can be a little confusing if your batteries are low and they actually die. Well, maybe you set it down, you pick it back up, you go to test voltage at the conductor, your batteries actually might have died and your voltage tester is no longer working. When the batteries are dead and it's not working, it looks a lot like not detecting voltage. So there can be some confusion there, and that's why I don't use this unit anymore. Now, I could have avoided this situation by using best practices when it comes to using non-contact voltage testers. The best practice is always to test on a known circuit, confirming that your voltage tester picks up voltage, then test on the circuit within question, confirming you do not have voltage and it's safe to work on that circuit, and then go back to that known circuit that's on, confirming that you're picking up voltage. So then you have 2 validation points, one at the start and one at the end, and a test point in the middle, knowing that your voltage tester is working correctly, so you're confident that you can work on that circuit. So those are the 5 mistakes that I've made, and hopefully that will help you avoid those on your projects. Now jump down in the comments and let me know what mistakes you've made. I'm very interested to get your feedback, and hopefully we can all learn together and continue to ensure we're working on our electrical projects safely around the house. Now, if you want to continue to grow your knowledge, check out this video right here and I'll quickly run through 10 different things that you might not know about a common duplex outlet. So thanks for joining me on this video, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.